Welcome, everyone, to this webinar. We have Giulio as a panelist for this webinar. Giulio is an expert sales trainer who focuses on cold calling, and he has had almost a decade of experience in recruiting. So we thought he's a perfect fit to talk about cold calling. We get a lot of questions about sales and cold calling from our users, from our prospects. So I thought it might be a good idea. Giulio, you want to take it away?
We can absolutely. So we'll do this a little bit differently. I quite like online training. So the training will be on the screen. So at least it's going to be a little bit more, you should be a bit more interactive, let's say. So I prepared I would say 5 of the most important topics of cold calling. So obviously, Manan, pick and choose. If there's something that you like or you want to ask me a question, please do. Okay?
I will. Perfect.
Awesome. So we'll start with mindsets for the simple reason that if you are not picking up the phone, then whatever we're going to talk about is going to be irrelevant, right? When I talk about mindset, I want to start with the little calculation I used to do for my team when they started in recruitment, which is maths, not the scary part. But who do you think really benefits when you're filling a job, right? And most recruiters usually think, oh, well, I'm going to get good money. If you're a well-paid recruiter, you might get thousands of dollars or pounds out of it, right? But the candidate gets a job, they will be better than what they have. Okay, so Zoom is just giving me the thumbs up. And then the clients is going to feel what is a nightmare for them. So you might make thousands of dollars, your company as well, but the 2 other people will benefit way more. Okay, so the first thing that I would get into my mind is that you're not hunting, you're trying to help your prospects. Okay, and there are a ton of really crap recruiters out there, which kind of means that if you're doing a good job, you're actually doing everyone else a favor. Okay, so that's the first thing that you should have as a mantra. I'm trying to help these people. Now let's talk about some practical things you can do whenever you wake up in the morning and you feel a little bit like this, which I'm sure most of you have done at a certain point, right? So the first thing I always start from is create a really good list. There's nothing worse than calling for a list that's not relevant to your target audience or your candidates, etc. So first, before you start picking up the phone, make sure you have a list of 50, 100 potential hiring managers in HR that you can talk to. Okay, that's the first and foremost thing to start from. Then what I would say is always have a pre-call routine. This is a bit like the routine of going to the gym. So for example, I always do cold calling at the same time. So which is usually 10 to 12 a.m. So this is the first thing I do. I don't care about pickup rates, whatever, but I know that 10 to 12, my brain knows I'm going to do it. Usually before that, I have an app I use to do some role plays to warm up my voice. Singers do it. They get paid millions. We get paid way less. We might as well give it a go. And then I'll just get myself the mindset that I'm going to call. I put some music in the background, but build that ritual. Then for those of you that are struggling the most, I go with the starting small. So I call it the pyramid. So you want to start, let's say first day, I'm going to have 3 conversations. That's it. Nothing else. Okay. The biggest reason people fail at dieting or at actually building up an exercise routine is because they go, you know what? I've been eating 3,000 calories a day. From tomorrow, I'm going to go 1,000. And of course, they're going to fail because it's impossible. Your brain is not used to it. So start very small. So 3 conversations. The day after, maybe you do still 3. Then you do 4. Then you do 5. By the time you get to 10 conversations a day, there's a good chance you're building a very solid pipe. Okay? And then the final, the part you're going to hate the most is you got to do it every single day. So you'll see here, I have, these are the rejections that I have. And then I have rejection since meeting, which is currently at 18. It's one of my worst performing weeks so far. And then how many straight days? So I've been cold calling 32 straight working days since I came back from holidays. Just because that's what builds the routine that every day I'm going to get it done. Now let's talk a little bit about something that some of you are probably dealing with. So the first thing is, if you can buy mobile data, that's a no-brainer. Just buy mobile data. Okay. I find in Europe Cognizant works really well. Lucia is good, and Zoom Info seems okay for the US, but there's other options you can look at. I'll give you some details at the end that you can take at. But if you can avoid it, do. But some of you might not be able. Maybe you're recruiting industrial, or it's not easy to find mobile numbers. So there's two approaches. I don't like the first one, which is the trying to power past them. I don't like this, but we'll talk about it anyway. And the other one is to try to make friends with them. You know, I'm Italian. I like to make friends with people, so that's my favorite approach. So the direct approach it's based around two rules. So first of all, the tonality should be like I belong on the call. I'm calling. I'm like, well, I need to talk to this person. And the other thing they should be thinking about is that most gatekeepers are typically asking three questions, which is who's calling, what's the company you're calling from, and what's the call regarding. Now, if you play your cards right, they're never going to ask any more questions after that, which the fourth question might be, are they expecting your call, which is the one that you don't want to get asked. So the simple thing would be here, something along these lines. So someone picks up, it's like, is my nan in? So it's just straightforward. It'd be like, who's calling? Well, it's Segantini. I'll go with my surname, because usually like older, like more powerful people, they might be a bit more conservative. And then every question that you are saying thank you to implies the conversation is over. So this is why you always want to end up with thank you, because it just kind of tells them the conversation is over, put me through. Where are you calling from? And then I'll just give a short abbreviation of my company. Now, if they get to the what's the call regarding, now, this is a trick I used to do. You got to be crafty with that. I would say it's about an interview. And what happens next is the first thing that will come out of my mouth is, hey, Manan, look, I was giving you a ring because I got a candidate in your area that I would like you to interview. So I will, because then at that point, I'm not lying, it's true. And most good recruiters will have at least a couple of hot candidates they're representing. So that's a way that you can move around this. If you're headhunting someone, so let's say you're trying to get through to a candidate you want, then just come up with something really technical they won't understand. That's the simple logic. And then, are they expecting your call? I hope so, right? So you quite authoritative voice. Again, you're just kind of putting on in a situation where the gatekeeper doesn't have a choice but to put you through. The reason I don't like this is because if, like me, you have an accent or a recognizable voice, this usually works once or twice. And then the person will clock you. If you're so important, why do you keep calling and the person is not picking up the phone, right? So that's just something to keep in mind. So this is why I much prefer approach number 2, which is really more about building the relationships. And this is more like a warm, kind, open voice, and you're trying to turn them into your allies. And this is more something like, hey, who am I talking to? And they'll be like confused. No one ever asks their name. No one. They'll be like, it's Mark. Who am I speaking to? So, hi, Mark. I'm hoping you can help me. My name is Giulio. I'm looking to speak to Manan. Can you put me through? Very different approach. Helpful, etc. And you might get information out of them as well. What's regarding? Well, I'm helping managing directors of ATS companies to fix problems around hiring. That's what it takes care of, right? And again, the person's like, well, yeah, that's right. I was like, okay, can you put me through? Much better approach. So if you call them again, you can be, hey, Mark, it's Giulio again. I didn't manage to catch Manan yesterday. Can you put me through again? Right? Very different approach. And by the way, don't worry about taking screenshots, etc. I'll send everything at the end so you can take a look at it. Good. So openers, this is probably everyone's favorite topic. They all think it's generally less important than you think. So the opener is less important than you think. Your tonality, what you say, is way more important. Now, what do you think most competitors, what they sound like is typically, hi, I'm Giulio Segantini. I'm calling you from company blah, blah, blah. We are the best recruitment agency in the world with thousands of candidates, blah, blah, blah. If your pitch sounds like this, you are the equivalent of, hi, how are you on Tinder. That's just what I want you to keep in mind, okay? So your opener should never be something like this, okay? Because you're just mixed in the crowd of everyone else. Now, I'm going to give you some options. You got to find yours, okay? And based on that, it should be getting to the point that it sounds like your own name. That's a level of confidence your opener should have. Once you find one that you like, you stick to it. It's like your name, you don't change it, unless something drastic happens, okay? Thomas will answer that later as well, don't worry. So look, ABM, this is account-based marketing. This is perfect for niche recruiters. So any of you that are working as a niche recruiter, this is where you're coming across a bit more soft, it's a bit more kind, and it goes something like this. Hey, Manan, you're not expecting my call, but I'm hoping you can help. You're part of a list of 27 managing director of ATS companies I would like to work with. Can you help me understand if it's relevant? So this works because you're asking for help twice in a row. It comes across very different from all the other recruiters. And generally, especially for HR, it's very receptive because it doesn't come across very aggressive, okay? So this is number one. This is one of my favorites, especially for those of you that are not like super aggressive salespeople. Then my second favorite, if some of you watch my videos on LinkedIn or TikTok, you know I like really funny, crazy stuff. So this is a bit more playful. This is coming across while smiling. And it's something like, am I going to ruin your Monday if I tell you it's a call about recruitment? Because imagine when they pick up the phone, a lot of people be like, oh my God. And so you just address that as like, am I going to ruin your Monday if I tell you it's a call about recruitment? And then they usually will be like, yes. And then they'll be like, well, what is it? But at least you're cutting through. Or they'll say, no, it's okay. I get some of them. Come on, tell me. The other one, and this is told from Benjamin Dennehy, for those of you that know him, is like, if I told you this was a call about recruitment, would a piece of you die? And again, it's got to be this tonality. It's got to be the playful, like, I know you probably hate recruitment calls, but I'm going to embrace that and I'm going to make you laugh about it. Okay. Then we'll go to the final. And this is the best if you're typically facing the same objection. Okay. And this one is a bit more direct and is almost a little bit sarcastic, I would say. And it's something like, if I told you I'm currently working with 5 Python developers, you're probably going to tell me you're not hiring, right? So if you're always hearing this, or you're probably going to tell me you've got 17 agencies on your PSL. So you're embracing that objection right off the bat. And then it's going to be a lot harder for them to say, well, yeah, maybe. Well, tell me a bit more. And again, anything that scrambles their brain and it's not what they usually hear is already going to make you stand out. Okay. So that's the most important thing that you can take out of the opener is the opener should tell them, I'm not like everyone else. Because this is what most clients will think about recruiters. They commoditize you. They think you're one of many. The moment they think you're one, half your battle is won. Okay. Manan, anything from your side, unless there's some questions that come? Because I'm very Italian and talking fast.
I do have some questions. So one recurring theme, I have questions from audience members as well, but while we are here, one recurring theme of being funny, being objection first, is that what you're trying to do is you're disarming your prospect, right? Like you're they expect something else from a cold call from a number that they don't recognize. Why do you think that works?
It's literally like most people, whenever you catch them unaware, and the best example I can think about is that you got your headphones in and you see someone approaching you, right? typically your immediate answer is like, I don't have change. It's just what your brain is so used to that reaction that if you can scramble it and be like addressing that or breaking the pattern, that's when you're going to stand out. And it's the same reason why I made the Tinder example, because if you're approaching it in a different way, you're immediately sparking curiosity. So you're looking to hack the prospect brain to think like, I'm not just a annoying cold call.
Yeah.
Because sadly, a lot of cold callers are just gonna call and be like, hey, and they want to get through as much as they possibly can as quickly as they can, which without permission, without anything. That's why actually my go-to is something like, look, I'll be upfront, man, and this is a dreaded cold call. Do you want to throw the phone out the window or let me have 30 seconds? It's totally up to you.
Yeah.
And then at the point, I was like, oh God, all right, go on, tell me. And then you're already starting on the battle. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, in my experience, right? Like, so breaking the pattern works. It works pretty well. And so, it's some you will have some people who will say, yes, this would ruin my day and hang up. You always have to be prepared for that. But breaking the pattern of a cold call, right? Like really helps. What it does is that it makes them think for maybe a couple of seconds, because their immediate response, they don't immediately know whether this is a cold call or not. It takes a couple of seconds for them for their brains to process this new way, this new thing that's happening to them. And that's all the opening that you need, right? Like, because they've listened to you. Absolutely. They've already given you 2 seconds. They're probably going to invest another 20 seconds into listening to you.
Look, the one last thing to add on here is that imagine this is a test for them. If you come across boring or like everyone else, the first thing they're going to think is, this person is going to find me candidates, or this person is going to find me a job. If that's how he sounds, if that's how she sounds, I can't really trust this person. So standing out is already half the battle. I'm going to take this to answer a couple of questions because I see coming up. So I'll give you a brief idea of what my sequence looks like. So I'll call first, always. And then what I'll do, I'll drop a voicemail, always, the first one at least. And it's going to be something like, hey, Manan, don't worry, there's no need to, actually, I say ciao, Manan, just because I'm Italian and I want to stand out. So I'll be, ciao, Manan. Look, there's no need to return this call. I'm about to send you a connection request on LinkedIn with some context. My name is Giulio Segantini, by the way. Have a good day. Boom. Then I'll drop them a connection request on LinkedIn with the logic of sharing a resource. So it's going to entice them to say yes. And then I'm also adding an email at the same time that's titled voicemail. And all the emails really says is, hey, I've just called you. I've left your voicemail. I've sent you a connection request with more context on LinkedIn. Boom. Obviously, if your LinkedIn sucks, so you got nothing on there, you don't point them to LinkedIn, you might point them to the email. If your email game is also terrible, then just point them to the next call. So, hey, I've just sent you, I'm going to call you in a couple of days. That's it. So I hope this answers some of the questions about the multi-channel. Perfect. I'm going to now talk about the pitch. So whenever I think about the pitch, usually I will get someone to share their pitch, but I think it's going to be faster. Again, it typically sounds very similar. Hey, we are the best. We do this, we do that. Whenever I walk into a recruitment agency as a client, the first thing I do is change their pitch. Now,
Giulio,
yeah,
hang on, right? Like, if anybody wants to try it out, I can make you, I can give you permission to speak. Just raise your hand. We can do a live example. I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that.
So we'll wait for a few seconds, see if anybody raises their hand. Okay. And
we got, I think Thomas had his hand raised from before, though, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to do a little review of their pitch, I'm happy to listen to it. Otherwise, you can type it as a question if you really don't want to come in front of. To be fair, there's 140 people. Maybe people are a bit shy.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
Oxian.
Look,
let's do it. We have
Perfect.
Oxian.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but
Perfect.
you are now allowed to speak
Hi,
if you're
Oxian.
there.
You're a
Hello.
brave guy.
Well, I just want to say thank you guys so much for coming on here and, helping us. So I thought I'd say my pitch to maybe help someone out as well.
Of course. Of course.
Go for it.
Sure. So once I get on the phone with the decision maker, I tend to, bring up that I'm a recruiter and that I specialize in their specific industry, which tends to be HVAC, plumbing, or electricians. And once I tell them that, if I have candidates in the pipeline, I'll say something like, I have candidates in your area that are very qualified, that are looking for work. And I always follow up with the question, if I have what you're looking for, is there a reason why you guys wouldn't work with me? And then sometimes they come back with objections. Yes, I'm already working with a recruiter. And, one of the ways I respond to that, is, hey, we work on a contingent basis. Fee is only charged once the person gets hired. So in other words, we're just another set of eyes looking for you guys for talented individuals. So that's my pitch there.
Okay. Look, Oxy, do you mind if I rip it to pieces a little bit?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay. I'm only going to ask you one question, which is, what do you think your competitors say?
When you say competitors, are you talking about other agencies that are calling the company as well?
I would say, yeah, another agency, one of your direct competitors. What do you think they're going to say on the phone?
I think they'll also say that they specialize in, HVAC. They'll say probably similar.
Gonna say the exact same thing, right? Look, it's good. It's a good example. And don't worry, you're doing nothing wrong. You're starting with benefits, which is good. Okay. I'm gonna walk you through how there might be a way that you can break the pattern again and why it might work even better. So what is I'm just gonna answer this for everyone else. So like, what is everyone's favorite topic? And some people think it's their goals, their plans, whatever. Everyone's favorite topic is themselves, period. Unless there's someone that's clinically depressed or to some other level of like serious problem, they're going to favor themselves above everything else. That's just the way the human brain works. So the more you're talking about yourself, the more you sound like this. Right? You're literally puking like, oh, I've got all these great things about me. Imagine you go on a date and the date, all they start doing is like, how awesome they are. How is that date going to go? Right? So, and I know like a lot of you are thinking like, oh crap, maybe that's how I do it. Well, don't worry. We'll figure out how you can do it a little bit differently. So crafting the pitch, the very first thing is like, you want to start with problems instead of benefits. And there's a simple rule because of this, that human beings are psychologically, statistically, you don't have to trust me, it's everyone online, twice more likely to move away from a problem than they are to move towards a benefit, right? And a problem is the biggest driver to change. So people change when they have problems above anything else. So if you're starting to live with problems instead of the benefits, so what the problems you fix for other people instead of what is good about you, you're talking about something that's relevant to them way more. Okay, that's step number one. So now you might be thinking like, oh, well, what are the problems? For example, taking the example below, it could be like, like we talk to other companies that are hiring plumbers, and the top 3 problems they find might be that first, the candidates are over 50 miles away from the area, which makes it really hard for them to get to work. Or it might be that they get a lot of candidates to get to the final stage, and then it turns out they got a lot of other offers, or blah, blah, blah. So every single niche will have slightly different problems. The better you can craft those problems, the more they'll realize you understand them. So for example, when I call recruitment agencies, I was like, look, one of the big problems that recruitment owners face is that a lot of the consultants got a bit complacent during the post-COVID boom. You could literally fart and someone would give you jobs. candidates were applying like crazy. So obviously, like, now you have to pick up the phone again because the market came down, and that's a big problem. When I say this, like, oh yeah, I'm having this problem. So leading with the problems is what helps. And what you typically do is that you're gonna have a list of 3 problems, 2 problems, you change 1 or 2 of them until you find the 2, 3 that work very well. And then you have a very compelling and pattern interrupting pitch. I'll give you an example. So my typical pitch, again, you can find videos of me doing this everywhere, but it's something obviously quite clear, confident, but it'll be something like, well, our clients are hardworking TA leaders with a couple of headaches. Number 1 might be that they're getting hundreds of applications from their website or ads, but at the end of the day, less than 5% of them are actually relevant, which means they're spending hours to find that one interview for the hiring manager. Or number 2 is that the candidates are not really opening up with them about other offers, and then they waste a lot of time and their reputation internally to then present candidates that don't accept the final offer. And I'm just giving you a couple of examples here. But and then you hit them with the negative, which is what like actually Onyx was doing, is like you give them a reason to say no. Be like, well, you might tell me this is not an issue at all, and instead you are setting up 10 interviews in 10 minutes for every role you have. So you almost exaggerate. You almost want to make it like, well, no, of course not. Okay, when you say of course not, what do you mean? And then you have a conversation. Right? So if you draft the problems, you start seeing much better conversations and much better conversion on meetings as well as jobs. Okay. I know this was a bit complicated. I'm sure you'll have questions. I want to rattle through the last part, and then we can come back to it because we got at least 15 minutes for the Q&A. Now, the final part is objections. Now, for the objections, I've built out a wiki that I'll share at the end, so you'll have them. I'll quickly run you through my framework and how you can go about it. So whenever I ask people this question, who's in the best position to change the prospect's mind, people usually react like this. At the end of the day, what happens when you're having a fight with your partner about something really stupid? You get stuck on your opinion, she gets stuck on an opinion, or vice versa, and you never go anywhere. The only person that can change someone's mind is themselves, again. So the logic of objections is you want to try and get them to change their own mind. And I'll give you very simple framework and a couple of examples that we'll rattle through. So the example, the framework I use is APC. So it's like always be closing, but it's a bit different, which is accept, permission, and clarify. And this is how I handle all the questions, which is by accepting them, asking for permission for clarification to build trust, and then clarifying it. Okay, I'll give you some examples with what I call the usual suspects. So these are probably the 3 ones that you're facing in 75% of your calls. If you can handle these 3, you typically can get a ton of business. The first one is the PSL, and it will be something like, well, actually, that's my favorite objection because it means like, well, it's great. It means they're using agencies. It's like I'm talking to a supplier and tell me, oh, you know, we spend a bit too much money. Well, at least you got money to spend, right? And then I'll be like, do you mind if I ask a question about your PSL? And typically, if you're being polite, people are like, yeah, sure, go on. And then I hit them with either like, well, does that mean you never consider taking on new agencies? And so again, I'm trying to like, of course they do. Of course they change the suppliers. I'm trying to get them to think. And then if they tell me, well, no, of course we do. And then I was like, what would be the reasons you would? And then I'm over the objection. I'm trying to talk, to have a conversation about them. Or, this is my favorite, obviously, does it stand for perfect supplier list? And then usually they'll be like, oh, well, no, it's preferred. It's like, oh, why not perfect? Well, nothing is perfect. And again, I can have the conversation. And then that no hiring, this one is like, oh, that's good. At least you have time to breathe now. Because recruiters do hiring for a living. Most people absolutely hate hiring. It's so stressful for them. So this is going to relate, accepting it. Yeah, giving you objections is great. But do you mind if I ask a question about whether you're not hiring? And when you were hiring, out of the problems, which was the worst? So I go back to the problem. Because if they have that problem when they're hiring, they will talk to me again. This is why it's better than benefits, because you're talking about something that's more hurtful for them. And then, or alternatively, a bit more open. When you do hire, what's the biggest headache? And again, you want to take them back to the problems and figure out, do they have a reason to change? Because realistically, if you're calling someone, they've got 10 agencies that perform incredibly well, you're much more likely to be better off disqualifying and moving on. Okay. Now, last but not least, and no budget. And this one is like, I approach it like, oh, that must be frustrating. Because imagine if they don't have budget to pay an agency, they probably are frustrated because it means that they've got to do it themselves. Talent acquisition might not react quite like this, but this will work anyway. And again, do you mind if I ask a question? And then, so you never unlocked or unfrozen extra budget for a difficult search or a perfect candidate. Again, you want to challenge them and they'll be like, well, yeah, of course we did. All right, okay, what was the reason behind that? And if they say, no, we've never done that, again, this is probably not a very good client because it's going to be really hard to get them on board. And finally, again, budget aside, do any of these problems I mentioned before resonate? Because if you take them back to the problem, you're far more likely to have a more in-depth conversation, which will separate you from the rest again. Boom. Okay, I'll rattle through this. I'm 6 minutes late. But we'll take the questions now. In the meantime, before we do, so if you go on www.coldcallingwiki.com, you literally, I find, I built a Wikipedia with all of the things we discussed. There's a section for recruiters as well under objection handling. You'll find all the scripts, everything you could possibly need in there. And you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. Okay, Manan, thanks a lot for having me. And thanks, everyone. Best of luck with your BD and have a great day.
Pleasure's all mine, Julio. Thank you so much for doing this with us.
Absolutely. Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Making it till the end of the video. Trust me, you're one in 1,000. So if you really like the content, please give us a like or subscribe. And if you have any ideas, if you want any topics for us to cover, do write to us in the comments. Thank you so much.